It's a windy day. It's Monday evening, and I'm here at a house in East St. Paul. I'm previewing it for my clients, which means I'm seeing the property without them because of timing. The Jets game is on in an hour and a half, so I don't want to stay here too long. And that's one of the reasons why my clients can't see the house today. I showed 5 condo units on Henderson to some other buyers, and that was good. And I want to make this video, I'm making this video because I want to share with you a story about double lending and the negative things that can happen to especially a seller when their listing realtor is wearing both hats. They enter into what is called a limited joint representation situation. And that means that the listing realtor is representing the seller, is also wearing a hat to represent the buyer that they brought to the table. I recently wrote an offer with some clients of mine who I'm selling their place. And we found a house that they like, that they want to buy before they've sold their existing place. That means we wrote an offer conditional on me selling their house that they already own with a 48-hour clause that allows the seller to step in if they receive a better offer between now and our deadline. And that means then my buyers have a choice of A, proceeding with the purchase of that new house, except they have to remove their condition of selling their house, and that puts more risk on them, or they can back away with no loss of deposit, and so on. They chose to take the latter, to back away. What ended up happening was, the reason why they did that is because the listing realtor, I found out only after, because that listing realtor is not obligated to tell me details about that deal because of privacy until it's finalized. What I want to say though is that this realtor encouraged her sellers to accept an offer that was $5,000 less than the offer I wrote with my clients, albeit conditional. But the offer she wrote with her buyer, also representing the seller at the same time, the double ending I was telling you about, her offer was $5,000 less. So why would she convince her sellers to take $5,000 less? The main reason is that the deal is final. There's some wind there. The deal is final. No conditions. That means that the seller, yes, will get paid indefinitely for the sale of their property because there's no conditions. But ultimately, the realtor gets paid indefinitely and sooner because they don't have to wait for me to sell the house that my clients own. Is that a wrong thing? Well, it's not against the rules. It's not against the law. It's not even in breach of any fiduciary responsibilities or code of ethics that we have to adhere to as realtors. The issue I have is more of a question. Is she really looking out for the best interests of her clients, meaning the sellers? And yes, the buyers are getting a good deal, but ultimately her sellers are her first clients. And that's the challenge with entering into a dual agency agreement as a listing realtor. It's unfortunate that I see this sort of thing happening because it's very easy to work with somebody in my business who's pushy and wants to make a sale for the sake of making a sale. They want money. The problem with that sort of motivation is that it puts pressure on you as a buyer and even as you as a seller to the point that you may make a rush decision or a decision that not only is rushed, a decision that is not right for you. That's my thought for today. It's Wednesday and I'm just back from my dentist. As you can see, I still get free toothbrushes. Went for a cleaning. And I would highly recommend Downtown Dental there at 500 Colony, across from the U of W, and I see Dr. McIntyre. Very down-to-earth, knowledgeable guy. He's also my client and a huge Jets fan. So if you're looking for a dentist, go see him. Okay, this is an addition to the clip you're watching now because I forgot to mention something that's really important when a realtor double ends. And I was telling you a story about how I wrote an offer with my clients as the selling realtor, presented it to her, the listing realtor who's representing the sellers, and they conditionally accepted it. It was conditional on me selling my client's existing house. Okay, That listing realtor got an offer, or basically not got an offer, found a client who didn't have a realtor, and she wrote the offer with that buyer as the selling realtor, also representing the sellers as their listing realtor. As I mentioned, that's two hats, right? They enter into dual agency agreement when that happens. The main thing, okay, yes, they do get paid. She would get paid indefinitely and sooner because it's a now final deal, because we backed out and her offer is final. The big one is that she gets paid twice the amount that she normally would. Why is that? The seller is responsible for paying for the full commission when selling their place plus GST, because it's a service. What typically happens is the realtor will say, I'm charging X percent, whatever amount that is, or it could be a dollar amount, but usually it's a percentage. And then they'll give a percentage to the selling realtor who's representing the buyer. That all has to be decided at the time that the listing realtor presents and signs the listing contract with their sellers. Usually what happens is, in this market, it's not a standard amount, or it's not, I can't say that actually, can't even say average. What I'm seeing is 2%. 2% for the selling realtor who's representing the buyer. Now, I sell property, I'm usually at 5 points, 5%. I will give 2% to the selling realtor and I'll take 3% because I do a heck of a lot more work than the typical realtor, and I do more work as the listing realtor, period. And I don't double end. I avoid doing that. My clients get better representation and better value. What happened here, that realtor took both percentages and took the total, because that realtor is doing technically twice the work. But are they really doing twice the work? Because let's think about it. They bring a buyer to the table. Usually the buyer found the house on their own and then calls the listing realtor. So the listing realtor, who's representing also the buyer in this case, didn't have to do a lot of work to get the business of that buyer. And also they don't have to spend twice the amount of work, because when you bring a buyer who's interested only in one property, usually they will close them in that one property offer. And therefore, it's not nearly as lengthy as finding a buyer, then looking at many properties, and then writing maybe a few offers, depending if there's multiple offers or not, etc. There's a lot more work done when you are working with a buyer who's not first discovered by you with a property that you're listing or you have listed for sale. So yeah, it's a big deal. So in this story I was telling you about, her clients got $5,000 less and she made $7,000 more, all because she chose to bring her buyer to the table and wear both hats. And that concerns me, because don't you think, and I'm leaving this as a hypothetical question or as a theoretical question, I'm not going to answer myself, but you're going to see that I'm slanting one way. Don't you think that the buyer would have better representation and have better negotiation on their end if they had their own exclusive selling realtor who is not representing the sellers as a listing realtor as well? Don't you think it's no different than a lawyer? A lawyer will not represent both sides, the claimant and the plaintiff. They won't go both sides of the court, because what's the point of then hiring a lawyer if the lawyer is going to be wearing both hats? It's the same thing, except in real estate and in Manitoba real estate, it's still allowed that a listing realtor can also represent a buyer. And as I talked about in a previous video, BC is going through that transition where you can't double end anymore. And it's quite controversial because there's some extra things in there that are, in my opinion, a bit too harsh even for people who want to double end, in my opinion. Nonetheless, I'm not for double ending. as a whole. And like I said, I made a commitment to myself 5 years ago that I will not double end. Now, the reason why I say that is when there's money. Sometimes there's situations, I won't get into it, but the money is the issue behind double ending. And then next is the ethics and the fairness and personal information, all those things that can become all washed together if the realtors aren't doing their job. The realtor only doing their job is representing the seller and the buyer.
Yeah, I've been saying I was rich since I was broke. Yeah, it's a state of mind, you gotta know. Yeah, that it's gonna happen for sure. Had to take my time, take it slow. Yeah.